Good afternoon, my dear seminarians, fathers, students of philosophy and professors of philosophy who are following this course on philosophical theology according to Whitehead and Hartshorne. This is the second installment of the lecture. But, as Emerita Quito used to say, only 35% of the work in philosophy is done by philosophy professors in the classroom. The bulk of the work should be done by the students, reading, ruminating, philosophizing by themselves, and writing. That's the nature of philosophy. Nobody can do philosophy for you. The philosophical questions have to be yours, and you have to raise these questions and struggle with these questions. The answers that the philosophers give are only clues, stepping stones for you to use in solving your own problems. Now, we ended last meeting's discussion with the introduction of the concept of creativity. And I want to repeat that creativity does not mean divine creativity. The problem is that in traditional theism, creativity referred to the action of God bringing things about out of nothing. Now, let us disabuse ourselves from that use if we want to understand what creativity is from the perspective at least of Whitehead and also of Hartshorne. From the perspective of these process philosophers, creativity is the sheer ongoingness in the universe. I repeat, it is the fact that in this universe there is a basic, there is a fundamental, there is a constitutive dynamism. You don't ask why it is there. That is the nature of the reality we are dealing with. Of course, you can ask why there is creativity, but that's just like asking why the South is South. There is no answer to that kind of a question. It is the philosopher in philosophizing must confront reality. He must not reinvent reality. And the reality we confront is such that there is inherent substantial activity in the universe which is called creativity. Now, I thought that before we would go any further, it might be good to introduce even just the basics of Whitehead's metaphysics. You will recall that I told you at the last session that the issue of God in Whitehead is, quote unquote, incidental to his metaphysical project. In other words, Whitehead was not primarily interested in a theory of God. He was not primarily interested in a philosophy of God. He was interested in a philosophy of reality. But he had to talk about God because in his concept, God was an indispensable element in talking about reality. So let's go back, let me try to introduce how Whitehead conceives of what we called actual occasions. I want to refresh our memories. Things that exist are, in Whitehead's philosophy, not substances. That's what distinguishes a substance ontology from a process ontology. Well, you have a similar distinction in Oriental philosophies. In Theravada Buddhism, you also have a process form of thought. In the theory of skandhas, or momentary occasions, point instants. Anyway, let's go back to Whitehead. An actual occasion is an actual entity. And aside from actual occasions and actual entities, nothing else is real in the universe. Now, an actual entity comes about on its own, and it exists momentarily. It does not exist for a long time. It exists momentarily. Now, why does an actual occasion come about? Why does it cease existing only to be replaced by another actual occasion? This is exactly what we mean by the ongoingness of the universe. This is exactly what we mean by the substantial activity of the universe. We said substantial activity is not a thing. Substantial activity is not an entity. It is real only in the actual entities. So the reality of ongoingness, the reality of creativity, the reality of substantial activity is manifest in the fact that actual occasions come into existence, exist momentarily, and then pass out of existence. Okay. Now, there is nothing that causes an actual occasion to come about. Why? I already said that. The coming about of an actual occasion is attendant to the ongoingness of the universe. The coming about, the emergence of an actual occasion is exactly what the creativity of the universe consists in. In other words, the emergence of the actual occasion as such cannot be attributed to God. Now, that is the reason why you have an expression like causa sui, self-caused, in Process and Reality by Whitehead. In Thomistic philosophy, of course, every notion of self-causation is a contradiction in terms, because in order to cause oneself, one has to exist to do the causing, and one must simultaneously not exist in order to be caused. But it makes perfect sense in process thought, because what it simply means is you cannot find an antecedent explanation for the coming about of an actual occasion other than the fact that this is a universe where substantial activity is at work. Now, when an actual entity or an actual occasion comes into existence, it does so by prehending the occasions in its immediate past. That means that what happens in the immediate past of an emergent occasion is not irrelevant to it. The new actual occasion prehends, integrates, makes part of itself the occasions in its immediate past. Of course, the new occasion will not be a mere reproduction of the immediate past. the new occasion will prehend, will integrate, will make part of itself the occasions of its immediate past in its own subjective way. I'll give you an analogy. The lectures of your professors in the past, will they be relevant to your own teaching of philosophy in the future? Of course. Of course. So, when you teach philosophy yourselves, you certainly will make part of your teaching, of your writing, of your own scholarship, the scholarly works, lectures, and explanations of your professors in the past. But are you going to be a mere reproduction of the words, the explanations, the works of your professors? No. You will integrate them into yourself in a manner peculiar to you. That's what is called subjective form. Therefore, the past will be found in you according to your subjective form. That also means, my friends, that every actual occasion now becomes a datum for a new actual occasion, of which the present actual occasion is its immediate past. Now, what does it mean? First, it means that there is an interconnection between actual occasions. Actual occasions are not unrelated to each other. Because if actual occasions prehend the occasions in their immediate past, make the occasions of their immediate past part of themselves, that means that there is a social relation, there is an interrelation between the actual occasions. And that is why this is sometimes called the social aspect of the ontology of Whitehead. A related concept is the concept of objective immortality. Now, may I ask again that we do not import into our understanding of objective immortality what we usually understand by immortality, say the immortality of God or the immortality of the soul. No. What is simply meant is this: if an occasion X ceases to exist, and X is in the immediate past of Y, Y will prehend X according to the subjective form of Y. In other words, X will somehow, and the somehow is important, X will somehow exist in Y. And Y will also somehow continue to exist in Z, which is the actual entity following Y. That way, there is a continuity from X to Z. Actual occasions do not just completely vanish. They are taken up by prehensions that constitute the subsequent actual entities. This is what is known as objective immortality. Okay. There is another term that is used by Whitehead. He speaks of object superject. Object and superject. Okay, let's take X. X is an actual occasion. X ceases to exist and Y comes into existence. As I already said, Y prehends X according to its subjective form. The process by which Y prehends X and makes itself come about is what is known in process philosophy as the process of concrescence. Concrescence. The moment Y exists, it becomes a superject in the sense that it becomes a possible datum for a succeeding actual occasion. That's unavoidable. That is unavoidable. And thus, there is a continuity of relations between beings, between occasions. There is what is known as objective immortality. Okay, thus far, we have dealt only with actual occasions. Now, but my account is incomplete. Why? Because if that were the whole story to the becoming of things, nothing new would ever happen in this universe. But why is it that evolution occurs? Why is it that from older species, from former new species, from fundamental forms of life, new forms of life can exist? Why is there evolution in art? Why is there evolution in music? Why is it, for example, that from the kind of music that you have in Gregorian chant, you evolve to polyphonic music later on, and then you reach a stage where music becomes even atonal? Why? Why do we have new ideas? Why do we have new ways of doing things? In other words, actual occasions are not only repetitions of the past. Somehow, an element of novelty must enter the picture. Okay. The whole realm of possibilities, may I emphasize the word possibilities, the whole realm of possibilities, not actualized or not yet actualized. Whitehead calls these eternal objects. Do not ask where the eternal objects are. They are nowhere, because they are only possibilities. They are only possibilities. For example, a complete vaccine that stops COVID in its tracks, at the moment, that is only a possibility. Or the evolution of human intelligence that exceeds, by our measurements now, 160 in the IQ scale. That's only a possibility. Or the possibility of a machine that can reveal at one glance where the malady in your body is, and that allows the physician to correct the malady by simply manipulating the machine. That is a mere possibility. Does it exist anywhere in the world? Nowhere. It is merely a possibility. However, somehow, when the actual occasion realizes itself in the process of concrescence of the actual occasion, it not only prehends the occasions of the immediate past, it also prehends novelty. It also prehends an eternal object, which is why succeeding occasions can bring about something new that heretofore never existed. Okay? May I now summarize? We have reached the stage at which we can say, therefore we recognize three constitutive elements of actual occasions. Number one, the objects of its immediate past, and the actual occasion itself that prehends the occasions in its immediate past. Number two, eternal objects, which exist nowhere because they don't exist, but are mere possibilities. And third, creativity, ongoingness. Okay. Here is the problem. A part of my kidney is an actual occasion. When that actual occasion ceases and another actual occasion takes its place, why does it not realize the possibility of being a Nara tree so that a Nara tree starts growing in my kidney? Why does an actual occasion constitutive of my kidney also become a kidney cell or a kidney particle and not a Nara tree or a part of a tortoise or anything else? In other words, in the actual realization of the actual occasion, there has to be some limitation. There has to be some limitation. And that principle of limitation, Whitehead calls God. In other words, the possibilities open to an actual occasion are ordered and limited, not determined, ordered and limited. And the principle of limitation of this ongoingness is called God. There is another function that is assigned by Whitehead to God. And God is He who prehends, He who envisages all eternal objects. The envisagement of all eternal objects is what Whitehead calls the divine primordial nature. The divine primordial nature. So, don't say, please, that the eternal objects exist in God, because to say that they exist is to accord them physical existence. What happens is that they are only conceptually prehended by God. All right? So now we have this picture then. The actual occasion prehends entities from its immediate past, also prehends eternal objects, and fulfills its initial aim according to a principle of limitation. I repeat, the account is as follows. An actual occasion prehends the occasions of its immediate past. It also prehends novelty by way of prehending an eternal object, and achieves the fulfillment of value according to its initial aim that is subject to a limitation which is placed there, a limitation which is attributed to God. Now, there is a difference between limitation and determination. God does not determine how every actual occasion comes to be. For example, will every cell of the kidney be a healthy cell? No. Some cells actually become cancerous. That's within the range of possibilities that can be achieved by a cell of the kidney. Will every human being turn out to be a responsible, God-fearing human being? No. Some human beings turn out to be foolish. Some human beings turn out to be stupid. Some human beings turn out to be criminal, just as some human beings can turn out to be geniuses. Some human beings can turn out to be exquisite artists. Because all of that is within the range of possibilities accessible to the actual occasion. Except don't forget what I told you. Complex beings like us, human beings, are not a single actual occasion, but are a society of occasions. But I'm just illustrating that even if God limits the possibilities open to us, He does not determine. So do I turn out to be a genius or do I turn out to be a moron? It's really up to me. It's really up to me. In the sense that if I make use of the potential for intelligence that is in me, I may make sense of my life. If I squander it, I don't have God to blame for that. But the principle of limitation is evident here. Does it make sense for me to aspire to fly around like an angel throughout the skies of Tuguegarao? No, that's not within the possibilities given me. That is a possibility given to a duck. That is a possibility given to a bird. That is a possibility given to an eagle, but it is not one of the possibilities given me. Therefore, there's a principle of limitation that says, no, that's not within the possibilities that you can achieve. But exactly what will I make out of myself, that's up to me, really. That's really up to me. And that's the actual occasion. Which is why, while there is order in the universe, while there is order in development, God is not the factor who says, you turn out this way, you turn out that way. He does not determine. He does not determine. So, the principle of limitation, which is God, is that which sends creativity along a certain path, but will not determine the end point. It will not determine the end point. Okay. So, once more we talk about, I'd like to end this segment by summarizing, what did we say about God? Well, God is not and cannot be an exception to the metaphysical principles. Therefore, if God is to be real, God is himself to be an actual entity or an actual occasion. But God is that actual occasion that makes possible or that puts a limit on the aim of an entity. An entity cannot aim at just anything. So, a seedling of a mahogany plant aims at being a mahogany plant. But within that aim, there is a range of possibilities. It can wither and die. It can be short for what is supposed to be a huge plant, or it can grow to full stature. It can also split into two, or it can be hollow in the middle. That's the range of possibilities. Will God determine exactly what it will be? No. But God sets the limits such that a mahogany plant cannot become a duck or cannot become a human person. That's the limit that is set there. Second, so God is the principle of limitation of creativity. Two, God in his primordial nature is the envisagement of all eternal objects. It is because of the envisagement of these eternal objects that there can be novelty in the world. I want to repeat, these are not the Platonic ideas, because according to Plato's myth, the Platonic ideas were supposed to exist in some Empyrean heights where the disembodied soul saw them before its incarceration in the body. Although let me tell you this, I don't think Plato really meant to take that literally. I think if understood properly, what Plato was suggesting was somehow there is in all of us an intimation of the ideal. And that's not too bad an idea. There's an intimation of the ideal. From the perception we have of everything imperfect, incomplete in this world, there is in us an intimation of the ideal that is more than the Aristotelian concept of abstraction. But that's for another subject. So, God envisages eternal objects that are pure possibilities. And again, which of these possibilities will be realized by the actual occasion is really up to the actual occasion, subject to the principle of limitation. Okay? So I think that this will be all for now. And I hope that at the next session with you, I receive some questions from you. I have asked the help of Professor Joel to monitor this with me so that if there are questions, he can give them to me and I can answer them during the sessions with you. Till next time, thank you.